Yeah.
Scott, you may want to ask about
Yeah.
Paul Dennis Reed. Pat talked earlier today about Paul Dennis Reed and how Nashville at the time was in fear. And,
I remember that case well. In fact, I was in night court when you guys, came through and covered all those cases gavel to gavel. I refer to him as Tennessee's most notorious killer because I'm not aware of anybody that's been convicted of killing seven people.
He's suspected of more, but of course
Yeah.
he's been convicted, of course, of 7. He's suspected not just in Nashville, but he's also suspected of killing some people in Houston, Texas, in a bowling alley that someone else is on death row for. I had to testify in the case that he was suspected of possibly being involved because the girl there was killed very similar fashion to somebody that was killed here. Someone else has been convicted on that case, and he was identified as being close to the area. But getting back to the Nashville times, it was a scary time for Nashville. I think it'd be fair to say that the city was almost paralyzed during the time when this started. Detective Rowland and myself were working on first with the Captain D's and then with McDonald's. And then when Baskin-Robbins happened, as I was telling someone earlier, I was getting ready to come into work, and I overheard it on the television that there had been 2 girls kidnapped from Baskin-Robbins, and they couldn't find them, and the doors were locked. And I remember walking over to the TV, and I remember I had a gut feeling that this is going to be the same person. So I got to the office, and Mike Rowland and I, we left, and we went straight up to Clarksville. And we met with the police department up there, and this before they even found the bodies. And then shortly after we got there, they found the bodies, and subsequently it was determined, of course, that Paul Reed did kill those girls as well. So it was, in my mind, it was my whole time in homicide. I don't think we saw a several-month period as scary as it was during that time for the police. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. The chief wanted us, of course, to solve the case, but we put the pressure on ourselves. We didn't need the chief to tell us that. We did it ourselves. And we had a lot of people involved, a lot of people working on that case, and then finally we were able to get them.
City change, you think? Was that a turning point where Nashville was a different place?
I think that particular year, for whatever reason, was a violent year. We had a lot of homicides that year. It goes up and down the numbers, but I mean, Paul Reed's a vicious individual. He's at the top of my list of unusual people we've ever encountered in terms of personality, behavior, that type of thing. Where he will hold the door for a little old lady, and then that night go out and kill 2 or 3 people. He's that type of an individual. So he's a real bizarre guy, and he's at the top of my list anyway of bizarre people that I've dealt with.
When you said that, and I think we're good if you want to get some 2 shots. Henry Eugene Hodges kind of was in that vein for me too. Where I don't know if we know all that guy did. You remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was kind of.
Still is.
Yeah, is he all bulked up and everything?
He's actually on death row, and he's in a cell by himself, and the cell, this side is empty, and the cell on that side is empty. And every time they take him out, he's got to be shackled, feet, and he's shackled like this, and they have 4 people walking him. Because he creates, still to this day. I talked to someone just a few weeks ago. Matter of fact, I gave her my business card, and I told her to give it to him.
Okay.
Yeah, and asked him to give me a call.
If he wants to talk?
Yeah, I mean, I know he's killed others. I've written him several letters over the years.
I remember Barry McDonald, the male.
Right.
Seems like he lived over in East Nashville, and there was another guy out in South Nashville, pretty close to Bell Road and Nolensville Road in an apartment complex.
Vernon Larkin.
Yep. Yeah.
He wasn't charged with that one. He was charged with McDonald, and he was charged with Barrett, telephone repairman that was killed over at Centennial Park area.
So I guess suspected in the Larkin case, but never made it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Roland Van Dyke case, too.
Isn't it funny stuff you remember? You were telling about Paul Dennis Reed, and I'm thinking Steve Hampton's or Jackson. I'm thinking the movie card of Hampton's. It was found on Briley Parkway. I was on Ordway Place a couple of days back on my way and went right past the house where Paul Dennis Reed was living. And I remember the automobile that he was driving at the time, saying it was a red Ford Escort. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I mean, there's no telling what he would have
done. Am I
done.
the only one that runs around town thinks and stuff like that?
I tell you, the real odd part about that case was when there was somebody who was a pallbearer at the funeral for Sarah. And he was a student at Ball State, and he was telling the class about his experience. And Paul Reed was a student in the same class. I think that's uncanny right there.
Weird.
Yeah, really is.
I remember a police detective friend of mine sending me to the University of Louisville to talk to a guy named Ron something or other who taught a class called Murder in America. I think you know this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Remember visiting with Magliolo, too. And he told me about committing a crime in Texas, but he never would,
I think he told you he killed 12 people.
I'm trying. That's been a long time, but I remember driving over to Lake County, Tiptonville. It's about as far to the west and as far to the north as you can get, still be in Tennessee, just this side of the Mississippi.
I'm not sure I've ever been to that one. I've been to Mountain City. That's about as far as I've been.
I remember driving over there to talk to him, fully expecting him to cancel the interview after I drove
Really?
4 hours to see him.
Well,
you know how they do.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But he confessed to 3 to us. So.
Remember the case you mentioned? That was over on Dickerson Road at the motel.
Yeah, down in Baycott. Yeah. Room 23.
You know, we didn't even talk about, and you didn't know this. I was at the TBI when, oh gosh, his name escapes me, but I can so see his face, the truck stop serial killer, when his truck was brought in.
Mendenhall?
Yes, Bruce Mendenhall.
Yeah.
It was totally unrelated matter. I had no idea what the truck was. I thought it was somewhat unusual, but you know, it's like there's cops all over the city right now doing all kinds of things you're not aware of.
Right.
Well, my people had people over this other thing, and I had no idea when I'm standing over there that that's the truck that you spotted. That's got to give you some satisfaction. That was kind of a cool one.
Oh yeah, I mean I mean the circumstances, of course, unusual. Where you turn down and you see this truck coming toward you, and it turns out to be the truck that was actually involved in not just the homicide of our victim, but homicide of several other victims.
In some of those cases.
And we were able to find the evidence in the truck like we did. Yeah, that worked out really well.
What do you think about that? I mean, do you ever think sometimes about the hand of God just putting you where you need to be at the right time? You need to be there, and all your experiences beforehand allow you to make some calls.
I think that's got a lot to do with in terms of instincts. I think maybe someone who maybe is less experienced maybe might not see some of the things some of the more experienced guys see, and they may miss it. And if you see something and you trust your instincts, like a news reporter following a particular story, their instincts tell them this is a good story. As time went on with Mendenhall, my instincts were telling me that I think this guy's involved in a whole lot more. Of course, it turns out that's what it was. And my instinct also told me, as I told someone earlier, don't let him leave without looking in the truck. And that clearly told me that. And it's a good thing we looked in the truck. So.
And didn't he let you look in the truck?
He did.
And then you saw something immediately that led you.
In the back, there was a bag, and there was full of blood.
Yeah, that's crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mentioned that one last Thursday briefly, but those things kind of pass through your mind. A lot of history of this town.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of cases.
Oscar Frank Smith, were you in on that one?
Which one?
Oscar Frank Smith,
Yeah.
Ludi Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I drive places, these are the things that. That's how sick I am.
Yeah.
You remember stuff. You know, that was the first triple homicide I covered. Those don't happen very often.
Not very often, no. I mean, they're happening more nowadays for some reason, but yeah, back then it was very unusual. Particularly when you're talking about children, you didn't have it very often. Yeah.
Byron Lewis Black.
Yeah. Bill Pridemore's case, yeah.
Yeah.
And they matched the bullet they took out of the boyfriend's arm, and they matched it to the bullets in the victims.
Yeah.
Music Row, we got Kevin Hughes. How we got that one, same thing. So yeah, there's a whole lot of cases out there.
The place you drive. Does it make you feel good to have been involved in so many? I mean, you have to think, you're sorry that things happen, but
right.
You figured it out. It was a mystery, and you figured it out.
I mean, I'm glad I was in a position to be of help to whoever was involved in the case. I mean, that's what my deal is. I don't, it doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as we solve the case, and that's typically how we approach it. When you have a cold case unit, that's how you approach it. It just so happens, I don't know why, but I was involved in a lot of cases over the years, a lot of maybe big cases, as they say, higher profile cases. There's a lot of cases, high profile, that I wasn't involved in, but that's just how the chips fall. Maybe I was on call that night or whatever the circumstances were. Steve McNair, I mean, other cases like that. So there's a lot of cases out there that I was involved in, and I'm glad to have been involved in them in terms of being able to assist.
You going to write a book about any of these things? Somebody, and I can't remember who said it, said you ought to write a book.
A few years back, I probably would laugh or scoff at the idea and say, no, who would read my book other than my mother and father would probably buy it. But there's been some people recently who have approached me seriously asking me if, are you interested in writing a book? So, I mean, maybe it might happen. I don't know yet. So, but that's something I think I'll look at, maybe. So it could happen.
That might be some good tag information. I'm not surprised to hear. Brian, anything for you, buddy?
No, I'm good.
You okay?
Yeah.